Alright, so today we're going to do the yellow undertones and then the blue undertones. I'm going to start with the yellow first. I'm going to just approach this the same way I did with the red undertones. I'm going to move that over a little bit. So if you guys look on the red undertones, we mixed burnt sienna with yellow oxide. This time for the yellow undertones, I want much more yellow oxide than the burnt sienna, so I flipped those two. Now remember, the rule of thumb is that you usually, when you're mixing two colors together, you always start with the lightest and you add the darkest to it. So we kind of did that a little opposite up there at the top, but there are always exceptions to the rules. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with a bit more of the yellow oxide than I did when I did the red undertone. So I'm going to grab probably about 4 scoops. Yeah. Real technical here, guys. Real technical. I'm going to do 4 scoops of the yellow oxide. My paint's a little bit on the thick side, so I'm just going to get my brush wet and kind of rehydrate some of that paint. Alright, so now that I've got my 4 scoops of yellow oxide over here, I am going to go ahead and get, I'm going to say like a half a scoop of the burnt sienna and mix that in. I think I'll need more, but I just want to be on the safe side. Since that is the darker, since burnt sienna is the darker in the mixture, I don't want to go too crazy. So basically I've got the same 2 colors. I'm going to add a little bit more burnt sienna to this. Same 2 colors I used for this one, okay? But when I mixed this, I wanted it to be more on the red side than on the yellow. Now, yesterday I did add some of that red, that cad red deep to my mixture. Today, since I'm doing the yellow, I'm going to add like a half a scoop of this primary yellow color into it, because I want it to just be a bit more on the yellow side. Just going to add just a little bit more. Now again, everybody's sort of base is going to be different. I think for me, as long as you guys learn how to kind of create a range of skin tones, that's my objective. If yours is a little bit lighter, darker than mine, I'm not going to make that a big deal. It's just today, this exercise is just to kind of learn about how to make different skin tones and how to make them lighter and darker. Alright, so I'm kind of liking that base, so you can kind of see the difference between just yellow oxide on its own in my mixture here. And I did add a bit of yellow to that. Might add a little bit more. I don't know. Again, painting is just like one big experiment. You're not going to know how to do something until you just play with it. Okay. Try to clean this off a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to use this for my base. I'm going to move this out of the way. So your base is going to be, again, your box right there in the middle, which is going to be number 4. And again, if you feel like, and my paint's a little bit on the kind of thick side, you can always get your brush a little wet to kind of make it more fluid. You just don't want to do it too much because it'll just break down the paint. We don't want it to look like watercolor. Now again, when I'm painting a shape like this, I start in the middle and I kind of just push the paint towards the edge. That's how I kind of control it. And I do move this around a lot. So again, start in the middle and kind of push the paint towards the edge. And I do think too, not having a lot of paint on your brush also helps to just control it better. Okay. So there's my base. I'm going to flip this so it's right side up. So just like yesterday, I'm going to go ahead and do my tenths. Okay? So I'm going to go do my tenths. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take half of this pile and I'm going to create another pile. Now, I'm running out of room on this plate, so I'm going to go ahead and go over to my second plate here. Do you think it's easier to kind of work with them when they're separate? I knew I was going to do that. Okay, so took about half of my base color. Now I'm making a separate pile. This is where I'm going to start making my tents. So I am going to move this over. So I'm going to go ahead and take some white, and I'm going to start with, again, I like to be on the conservative side because I can always add more later. So I'm going to take like what I would consider to be like a half a scoop, and I'm going to mix this with this secondary pile of my base color. And just mix that in there. Now again, since I'm using my second plate, I can't really compare these all too well, so I'm going to have to pick up my paint. Yep, I'm going to go lighter. You just want to make sure that there's a clear difference. You see movement in the value. And again, I'm kind of I'm mixing this the opposite way that you should. You should always start with your lighter, but I'm doing something a little different. Okay, I think that's good. All right. This is when I'm jealous of your guys' tables. Desk is not big enough. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and paint this down for number 3. Again, I start in the middle, work my way to the outside. Now, something that you guys will notice while you're working on your self-portrait and you're actually painting it, no one's going to be just straightforward like a yellow undertone or blue undertone or even red undertone. You will notice very quickly that you're probably going to use a little bit of everything that you see here on either one of these value scales. Just depends on obviously the lighting and the shadows, but also too the colors that are around you. So, like, you know, if you're wearing, like, a highly reflective shirt, like red or something, you might see that the areas of your skin that are near that red shirt just looks more red, which would make sense. So, all right, so there's my number 3. I'm going to add more white to my mixture. And just like I did yesterday, again, I'm going to use about half a scoop here. I'm going to I'm not going to mix this all in with this whole pile. I'm just going to kind of do this off to the side so I can kind of see exactly how different they are. And then if I need to make it darker, I'll just drag more of that darker tint into my pile. So I'm liking that. So looks different enough, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. Now, after we're done with all of these scales, we're going to actually learn how to, and just kind of review how to glaze with acrylics. And we're going to actually glaze right on top of these scales so you can see how it can help you with your portrait. glazing is a great way to kind of fix and just kind of push your colors a little bit farther without destroying your layers underneath. So, keeps everything intact, just kind of pushes things, changes it just a little bit. Alright, so there's that. So, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take another, again, like what I would say would be like a half a scoop of white. I'm going to make kind of like a third pile, just right off the edge here of my second. And if you guys have noticed, I have not washed my brush at all. Reason why is because I actually need all the colors that are on my brush, so there's no reason to stop and clean it. Alright. I feel like it keeps getting darker. Need to add more white. Okay, so I'm going to use that. Alright, so there are my tints for my yellow undertone. I need to, because on my next step is to do the shade side, I do need to wash off my brush because I've got white on my brush. If I kept this the way it is and start making my shades, I'm going to probably end up just graying out my colors. So I do need to wash my brush really, really well. So get that white off your brush before you start your shades. Once you add white to your mixture, you don't want to try to make it necessarily darker using like the ultramarine blue or black. You can make it darker by just adding more of your burnt sienna or yellow oxide if that will work. That's fine, but once you've got white in the mixture, you just don't want to try to make a shade out of it. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to work off of my first plate here. So I've got the other half of my base color here. So what I'm going to do, now I can do a couple things here. I'm going to go ahead and try to make this darker by I'm not going to add blue quite yet. At least right now I'm not. I'm going to go ahead and grab more of my burnt sienna, and I'm going to grab that and mix that into the mixture. So anytime you're dealing with yellow or even orange, the way you can darken it is by adding more red. So that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm going to do that. Just see where I'm at. Just a little bit. I'm just going to darken it by adding more burnt sienna. And again, I add just a little bit to my pile at a time, and I just go back and add more if I need it. Okay. Alright, I'm going to use this. I don't think I need to add anything else to it, so it looks a bit darker. Yeah. Now if you find you need a little bit more, maybe burnt sienna just isn't cutting it, then you may need to start adding your ultramarine blue. that. Now to do my number 6, I probably am going to have to start adding blue now to this, because I don't think I can necessarily make it all that much darker with the yellow oxide in that mixture. So my blue pile's kind of dried up a little bit. A lot of times the paint is dry just on the top, like it gets this like kind of skin on it. But if you kind of move that around, you can get wet paint out from underneath there. So I'm just going to start by adding just a little bit. Again, since I'm making shades, it doesn't take much, especially with like a ultramarine blue, to make a difference. So I'm going to mix that into my mixture. And again, I'm just adding small amounts of this until I feel like I've got something. I'm kind of mixing it off to the side here so I could see what I had. Alright. I think that looks good. Again, anytime your paint feels like it's getting a little kind of thick or a little bit unmanageable, dip your brush in the water a little bit, that helps. Alright, so I think I've got something there. Now, like I mentioned the other day, there are lots of different ways you guys can make skin tones. Really, all you need are the 3 primary colors, black and white, and you can do anything with that. There's lots of different kind of tutorials on YouTube you can watch. I do find this kind of speeds it up. It gets you to a point where you have like a good kind of like base to work off of. That is not us. Okay. Alright. So now what I'm going to do is make my number 7. I'm going to see if I can get there with just adding more blue to my mixture. I don't know if I'm going to need black, but I'm going to try blue first. I don't think I'm going to need black. Now, a lot of you guys are, know that the darker colors get, a lot of times the cooler they get. So, yeah, I think I'm going to use that. I didn't need black for this one. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and paint this down. So there is my yellow undertone scale. Again, if yours looks a little different, don't worry about it. The point of this exercise is just that you guys get experience in just kind of making different skin tones and be able to learn how to lighten or darken them. Alright, so the next thing what we're going to do is the cool or the blue undertone. I'm going to have to open the sketchbook up now. What I'm going to do, guys, give you just a little bit of time to, if you need to refresh your paint, clean out your water bucket, you can do that. But I'm going to pause this and we'll get started here in a minute. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys now how to do the blue undertone. So we're basically going to go through the same steps, so you don't feel like you have to wait for me, you don't have to. But I'm going to demo this stuff for you if you want to see it. So for the blue undertones, we're going to use burnt sienna. So I'm going to start with, let's see here, I'm going to do about, I think that almost looks like 4 scoops of burnt sienna. Okay, so about 4 scoops of burnt sienna, and because we're doing the blue undertones, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with, I don't know if you guys can see it, like a hefty dot of blue. Not quite like a half scoop, not a full scoop. I'm just going to start with that. Nope, that did not do anything. So I need more blue. Ah, there we go. So right now all we're doing is just kind of creating our base, and then we'll end up making it lighter and then also darker. I'm going to add just a bit more. I'm doing more. Every time I think I've got it, I'm like, oh, I need more. Alright, that looks good. So, once you got your base, I'm going to go ahead and use this for my base. So again, this is just a mixture of burnt sienna and the ultramarine blue. It's gonna be hard. I'm regretting now having my value scales on 2 different pages because I can't make my sketchbook smaller. Okay. So there's my base for that. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the other two. I'm going to go ahead and take about half of this pile, set it off to the side, and I'm going to start making my tents, okay? Again, I'm not going to wash my brush off. I'm going to start by taking, since I'm kind of doing this in the opposite direction, I'm going to go ahead and take like a pretty good scoop of the white and mix that in here. There we go. And I've got my original pile right next to it so I can compare that really easily. So I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and use that for my number 3. Now I guarantee you guys, if you did this again, all 3 of these value scales, all your colors would look different, and that's fine. Again, this is just to try to give you guys the experience of just learning how to create all these different kinds of skin tones. So what I'm going to do is just going to do what I've been doing for the other ones. Take another I'm going to do like a half scoop of white here. I'm going to kind of just make this new tint that I'm creating just right off here off the side of my last one, so I could see just how different it is. And also too, if I want to make it darker, I just pull some more of that base color, or that last tint shade that I made in here. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right. Make my next one, I'm going to do the same thing. Go for like a half a scoop of white, and then just start another sort of side pile here. Okay. Alright, so there are my tints. Now I'm going to do the shades, and again, since I'm now working on my shades, I do not want to have any of this white on my brush, so I need to clean it off. So you always want to clean it off. At this point, you don't want to add blue to that brush or black, because you're just going to kind of gray out your color. Alright, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to work off again my remaining half of my base color that I've got there, and I'm just going to start by adding more blue to my mixture. I'm going to do the same thing I did with my tints, is just kind of work off of the pile and just kind of pull in more of that base color if I need it. And I just add small amounts until I get to where I need to go. Okay. I think think I've got something there. Alright, so I'm going to try to add more blue to this pile, but chances are I'm definitely going to have to probably use black at some point. I don't want it to necessarily look blue. So yeah, I think I'm going to add a little bit of black. And then just my last one, definitely going to have to add more black in here. It is amazing though how dark you can get your browns to go just with the ultramarine blue. Okay, so there is my blue undertone skin tone scale. So after you guys are finished, okay, you can go back, fix anything you think needs to be fixed. Kind of show this a little bit more. So there's our red undertone, our yellow undertones. That one I didn't end up needing any black at all for. I just darkened it up with the burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. So that one with the red, I did need to add black to it eventually at the end. And then here's my blue undertones, where basically I just used burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, white, and black to make that. Okay? So the next step of this is I'm going to show you guys how to glaze. And we're going to actually glaze right on top of these value scales. So you can see just how you can make slight adjustments to the color and even add more color to them, like warm it up or cool it down. So there you go.